the ongoing war in the Middle East has raised the threat of an attack against Americans in the United States here on our own soil.
Our country is really at an increased threat for a terrorist attack.
In just the past few weeks, multiple foreign terrorist organizations have called for attacks against Americans. We are addressing these threats with a sense of urgency.
Bueno, mi gente, tanto el FBI como el Congreso han salido públicamente advirtiéndole a los residentes estadounidenses de que podrían ocurrir ataques aquí en el suelo estadounidense. Tengo aquí los videos de advertencia y los estaré compartiendo con todos ustedes para que usted mismo los escuche. Y déjenme saber sus pensamientos en el área de los comentarios. ¿Acaso ellos saben algo que nosotros todavía no sabemos? Ya que ambos han salido a la misma vez a traernos esta advertencia. Mire. El medio nos dice que el director del FBI, Ray, advierte sobre una mayor amenaza terrorista y dice que Estados Unidos se encuentra en un periodo peligroso. Y esto viene ahora con la noticia de última hora de que el país de Yemen se ha declarado oficialmente en guerra contra Israel. Y estamos escuchando que esto podría llevarnos a lo que es una tercera guerra mundial. Y esto está provocando que las tensiones aumenten. Miren, nos dice que los rebeldes hutíes de Yemen reivindican ataques contra Israel, lo que acerca a su principal patrocinador, Irán, a la guerra de Hamas. Y hemos estado escuchando que Irán ha estado atacando las tropas estadounidenses en el Medio Oriente y ahora Estados Unidos se está atacando de vuelta. Irán ha amenazado a los Estados Unidos de no ser librados de este fuego si esta guerra continúa. Y ahora el país de Yemen entrando en la guerra, esto trae a Irán y a los Estados Unidos más cerca de lo que podría ser una tercera guerra mundial. Los hutíes de Yemen entran en conflicto en el Medio Oriente, endureciendo los temores de que esta guerra se siga regando. Y voy a compartir el video de advertencia del país de Yemen, junto con los que mencioné del director del FBI y el Congreso de los Estados Unidos, sobre los ataques terroristas aquí en suelo estadounidense. Ahora, yo sé que esta no es la noticia que muchos quieren escuchar, pero es mi deber y mi responsabilidad dejarles saber lo que está ocurriendo, no solo en el mundo, sino también aquí en los Estados Unidos. Así que quédese conmigo hasta el final de este programa para que no se pierda ninguno de los detalles que tengo para cada uno de ustedes. Y como todos saben, yo soy Franji de Producer, vengo con noticia diaria que impacta directamente nuestras vidas. Recuerden darle like, suscribirse y darle a la campanita de las notificaciones para que recibas aviso cada vez que subamos un nuevo programa. Bueno, mi gente, sin perder el tiempo, vamos de inmediato con la información. Así que vamos rápidamente con los videos para que usted mismo pueda verlos sobre los ataques terroristas aquí en los Estados Unidos y de lo que está diciendo Yemen al unirse a la guerra.
بإطلاق دفعة كبيرة من الصواريخ البالستية والمجنحة وعدد كبير من الطائرات المسيرة على أهداف مختلفة للعدو الإسرائيلي في الأراضي المحتلة. إن القوات المسلحة اليمنية تؤكد أن هذه العملية هي العملية الثالثة نصرة لإخواننا المظلومين في فلسطين، وتؤكد استمرارها في تنفيذ المزيد من الضربات النوعية بالصواريخ والطائرات المسيرة حتى يتوقف العدوان الإسرائيلي.
Bueno, y antes de mostrarles los videos del FBI y del Congreso, miren lo que dice este medio. Los rebeldes hutíes de Yemen reivindicaron por primera vez el martes ataques con misiles y drones contra Israel, acercando a su principal patrocinador Irán a la actual guerra entre Israel y Hamas en la franja de Gaza y aumentando aún más los riesgos de que estalle un conflicto regional. Se sospechaba que los hutíes habían perpetrado un ataque a principios de este mes contra Israel mediante el envío de misiles y drones sobre la crucial ruta marítima del Mar Rojo, un asalto en el que la Marina de los Estados Unidos derribó los proyectiles. Así que ven que los Estados Unidos han estado protegiendo a Israel contra estos misiles que vienen de otros países. Pero ahora con la entrada de Yemen y probablemente Irán, esto podría llevarnos más cerca de lo que es una tercera guerra mundial. Pues ahora viene el director del FBI y advierte sobre una mayor amenaza terrorista y dice que los Estados Unidos se encuentran en un periodo peligroso. Veamos lo que dijo el FBI y veamos lo que dijo el Congreso.
Discussions about the most pressing national security threats that what we face and what we're doing to tackle them are always important, but it seems especially well-timed this year with the dangerous implications the very fluid situation in the Middle East has for our homeland security. The reality is that the terrorism threat has been elevated throughout 2023, but the ongoing war in the Middle East has raised the threat of an attack against Americans in the United States to a whole nother level. Since the horrific terrorist attacks committed by Hamas against innocent people in Israel a few weeks ago, we've been working around the clock to support our partners there and to protect Americans here at home. We assess that the actions of Hamas and its allies will serve as an inspiration, the likes of which we haven't seen since ISIS launched its so-called caliphate several years ago. In just the past few weeks, multiple foreign terrorist organizations have called for attacks against Americans and the West. Al-Qaeda issued its most specific call to attack the United States in the last 5 years. ISIS urged its followers to target Jewish communities in the United States and Europe. Hezbollah has publicly expressed its support for Hamas and threatened to attack U.S. interests in the Middle East. And we've seen an increase in attacks on U.S. military bases overseas carried out by militia groups backed by Iran. Here in the United States, our most immediate concern is that violent extremists, individuals or small groups, will draw inspiration from the events in the Middle East to carry out attacks against Americans going about their daily lives. That includes not just homegrown violent extremists inspired by a foreign terrorist organization, but also domestic violent extremists targeting Jewish or Muslim communities. We've already seen that with the individual we arrested last week in Houston, who'd been studying how to build bombs and posted online about his support for killing Jews. And with the tragic killing of a 6-year-old Muslim boy in Illinois in what we're investigating as a federal hate crime. But as I said a few moments ago, on top of the homegrown violent extremists and domestic violent extremist threat, we also cannot and do not discount the possibility that Hamas or another foreign terrorist organization may exploit the current conflict to conduct attacks here on our own soil. We have kept our sights on Hamas and have multiple ongoing investigations into individuals affiliated with that foreign terrorist organization. And while historically our Hamas cases have identified individuals located here who are facilitating and financing Hamas's terrorism overseas, we're continuing to scrutinize our intelligence to assess how the threat may be evolving. But it's not just Hamas. As the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism, the Iranians, for instance, have directly or by hiring criminals mounted assassination attempts against dissidents and high-ranking current and former U.S. government officials, including right here on American soil. And along those lines, Hezbollah, Iran's primary strategic partner, has a history of seeding operatives and infrastructure, obtaining money and weapons, and spying in this country going back years. Given that disturbing history, we are keeping a close eye on what impact recent events may have on those groups' intentions here in the United States and how those intentions might evolve.
Well, first I want to thank Senator Cruz and Senator Cornyn for always being so forward in welcoming us to their home state of Texas and for organizing opportunities for us to go and visit the southern border of the United States with Mexico. We have just returned from our southern border, and it is painfully clear that with Joe Biden's open border policy, our country is really at an increased threat for a terrorist attack. A couple days before we got there, alert border agents were able to seize immigrants carrying with them IEDs, explosive devices really tailor-made for terrorism. They were the size of cannonballs. We went on a midnight patrol on Thursday night and encountered a group of migrants from as far away as Moldova. The one man, in his middle-aged man was there, said he was traveling as a family. That's because families receive special treatment. He had a young girl with him, maybe about the age of 10, said it was his daughter. She looked scared, There was no sign of affection, and there was no mother. You know, we used to do DNA testing to make sure this really was a family. No, Joe Biden stopped that testing, so now it's much easier to exploit children. You've seen the statistics, over 8 million border crossings, illegal border crossings under Joe Biden. Last month, another all-time high. It's gotten so bad that the Homeland Security has raised the terror threat because so many people are coming in illegally, and there are so many gotaways, people that run and hide in an effort to not be detected. 2 million of those. Look, if only 1 out of every 1,000 of those was a terrorist, you're still talking about thousands of people in this country illegally anywhere they could be. And remember, in terms of 9/11, it only took a dozen terrorists to take down the World Trade Center as well as hit the Pentagon.
Bueno, mi gente, ya pudieron ver lo que dijo el FBI, lo que dijo el Congreso. Está terrible todo lo que está pasando. Déjeme saber qué usted piensa sobre todo esto en el área de los comentarios. Me interesa saber mucho su opinión. Y si le interesa saber más sobre este tema, tengo otros videos que he hecho donde he estado explicando cómo se ha desarrollado todo esto aquí en los Estados Unidos. Y yo continuaré aquí actualizándome la información para traérsela a cada uno de ustedes según me llegue. Gracias a todos por su tiempo y recuerda que eres bendecido.